Now we are being told that we are all going to have costs for the crisis in Ukraine. More specifically, the global crisis just took a dramatic turn for the worse, and so that means that all of us will soon be hit by dramatically higher energy prices, and the cost of living will soar due to the dramatized conflict between Russia and Ukraine, which the West is pumping up the situation with its rhetoric and media propaganda. As a result of this conflict, the cost of living is going to become much more expensive, and the cost to fill up your vehicles is going to rise, with fuel becoming much more expensive in the forthcoming months. Also, it is going to be much more expensive to heat your home, with gas and electricity becoming much more expensive, and increasing costs to transport the goods that we buy will make the overall rate of inflation even more worse globally. Now it is going to have a huge impact on every single one of us. In response to the Russians moving forces into Donetsk and Luhansk on Monday, the Germans decided on Tuesday to put the Nord Stream 2 pipeline on hold indefinitely. Germany on Tuesday halted the Nord Stream 2 Baltic Sea gas pipeline project, designed to double the flow of Russian gas direct to Germany, after Russia formally recognized two breakaway regions in eastern Ukraine. Europe's most divisive energy project worth $11 billion was finished in September, but has stood idle pending certification by Germany and the European Union. Will this hurt Russia? Of course it will, but it is also going to hurt UK and Europe. Following Germany's announcement, the price of natural gas in the United Kingdom and Europe shot up by approximately 10%. But on Tuesday, the European benchmark gas price, currently the Dutch March contract, was up 9.8% at 78.95 euros per megawatt hour at 16:07 GMT, much like the price for the fourth quarter when Nord Stream 2 had been expected to start. And this is likely just the beginning of another natural gas price shock in the UK and Europe. Dmitry Medvedev is warning that Europeans are very soon going to pay €2 for 1 cubic meters of natural gas. The German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has issued an order to halt the process of certifying the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. Well, welcome to the brave new world, where Europeans are very soon going to pay €2 for 1 cubic meters of natural gas, with the United Kingdom's inflation to follow. If the price of natural gas gets that high, it will be completely and utterly devastating for Europe and the United Kingdom. The Europeans never should have allowed themselves to become so dependent on natural gas from Russia, and now a tremendous amount of pain is ahead. Meanwhile, the price of crude oil surged once again on Tuesday and has now almost reached $100 per barrel. The US crude surged more than 3% at one point to a high of $96. The contract ended the session at 1.4% higher at $92.35 per barrel. Brent traded as high as $99.50 before settling at $96.84 per barrel for a gain of 1.52%. It won't be too long before the global price of oil goes well beyond the $110 per barrel threshold. Needless to say, that won't be good for the global economy at all. On Tuesday, JP Morgan specifically warned about what an energy price shock could mean. As oil rapidly approaches $110 per barrel, JP Morgan warned Thursday that a spike in energy prices and other ripple effects from the Russia-Ukraine crisis could hurt both the stock market and the economic recovery. An energy price shock amidst an aggressive central bank pivot focused on inflation could further dampen investor sentiment and growth outlook, JP Morgan strategists wrote in a note to clients. But Joe Biden says that all of the bad things that are about to happen are necessary because we are defending freedom. Defending freedom will have costs for us as well. And here at home, he said during a speech at the White House, we need to be honest about that. The president specifically warned of higher gas prices as a result of the sanctions but promised he would use every tool possible to reduce gas and energy prices. "I want to limit the pain the American people are feeling at the gas pump," he said. Of course, higher energy prices won't cause much pain for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris because they are both multimillionaires and their counterparts. What Biden should have admitted is that you will be paying the price for his administration's failures, including his allies' collusions in their horrific foreign policy decisions in the Southeast Asia and the Middle East. On Tuesday, it was being reported that the price of gasoline in downtown Los Angeles has already risen above $6 a gallon. Fuel customers in California were in for a shock this week as gas prices at the pump hit upwards of $6 in downtown Los Angeles. In a report by Bakersfield ABC affiliate Kero TV, gas station customers expressed being overwhelmed by extremely high gas prices. "They're too damn high," one customer told reporters, adding it's made commuting much more difficult as she normally fills her tank 3 times a week. "I remember a time when I could fill up my vehicle for less than $1 a gallon, and just a couple of years ago the average price of a gallon of gasoline were less than $3 a gallon. Sadly, this is just the beginning. Once a major global conflict erupts, we could eventually see the price of gasoline go beyond $10 a gallon. I know that may sound crazy right now, but remember where you heard it first. Of course, higher energy prices filter through every level of our economy, and we are already in the midst of the worst inflation crisis that any of us have ever experienced. In fact, we just learned that home prices increased by a whopping 18.8% last year. Home prices rose 18.8% in 2021, according to the S&P CoreLogic Case Shiller US National Home Price Index, the biggest increase in 34 years of data and substantially ahead of the 2020's 10.4% gain. All the regions saw price gains last year, but increases were the strongest in the South and the Southeast, each of which was up over 25%. The stage has been set for the sort of hyperinflation that I have been warning about for a very long time. But even though Biden's and his British, European, specifically the G7 counterparts' disastrous domestic and foreign policy decisions have brought us to this point, the mainstream media and millions upon millions of sheeple will continue to cheer Biden on. Now let us analyze some facts. War is no good by any means, and we should condemn its actions at all costs. One of the points that the conflict in Ukraine has highlighted is how the Western media chooses which conflicts it wants to highlight, which is usually driven by their own agendas and gains, including false reporting of information. The US has said that Russia should not forget that all nations have a right to sovereignty and territorial integrity, agreed when foreign nations and institutes such as NATO crave to compromise the sovereignty of a nation, then that nation has the right to protect its borders, especially when the Western instruments yearn to set up military bases and camps in the region and take control of gas pipelines and oil exports. The war in Ukraine will increase the rate of inflation of gas, oil, produce and other imports, raising shipping and taxes, affecting global supplies and consumers globally, and increasing the cost of living. Clearly, the corporates will be profiteering from this war. Global oil and gas markets have reacted to the political tensions in turn as Brent crude achieved a high of almost $110 per barrel, and Asian LNG prices surged more than 50 pc to once again approach $40 per metric million British thermal units. In the wake of the Ukraine crisis, Biden has claimed that the US stands for freedom and democracy, but the US itself is a violator of human rights and is a close ally and supporter of brutal and fascist regimes, for example, Egypt, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, UAE, France, Israel, India, etc., to name a few. The Ukrainian forces are putting up resistance and inflicting damage on Russia's invading forces. of which the Ukrainian armed forces are made up by neo-Nazi, fascist racists. Biden's insistence that countries must not invade other nations on false pretenses is hypocritical, because when he was a senator he supported the US invasion of Iraq on false and deceptive pretexts. US imperialism, funded and fueled by the US military-industrial complex, has nearly 800 military bases worldwide. The US regime has launched two devastating wars in the West Asia region against Afghanistan and Iraq. It is presently occupying parts of Syria and has played a pivotal role in disintegrating Libya and creating havoc there. The Russian military operation in Ukraine could have been avoided, but Washington has proved one thing: when it comes to foreign policy, US double standards are inevitably at play, including the British and European double standards. But aren't Yemeni lives just as important, a war in which Western countries have contributed directly by providing arms to the Saudi-led coalition? And when it comes to territorial gains, what about Israel's occupation of Palestinian lands or the occupied Golan Heights? What about India's occupation in Kashmir, where innocents are being killed by the Indian army? The Western regimes seem to be silent in these matters.